because today marking a grim milestone. It's been exactly a year since Russia invaded Ukraine. There have been losses on both sides. The militaries of both countries are exhausted, and yet neither side is refusing to blink. And this war has turned into a West versus Russia and China war, whether you like it or not.
February 24, 2022. Air raid sirens cut through the morning calm in Kyiv. This as the Russian President Vladimir Putin declared war on Ukraine.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
A first since World War II. Putin called it a special military operation. And the man holding the fort, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The international community went into a huddle. What followed was global condemnation, sanctions, and intermediation. A year on, and the war remains without a winner. As Ukraine continues to fight back.
One year ago, the world was bracing for the fall of Kyiv. Well, I just come from a visit to Kyiv, and I can report Kyiv stands strong. Kyiv stands proud. It stands tall. And most important, it stands free. When Russia invaded, it wasn't just Ukraine being tested. The whole world faced a test for the ages.
We are not fighting the Ukrainian people. I've already spoken about this many times. The people of Ukraine became a hostage of the Kyiv regime and its Western masters.
It is right now and here in Ukraine that the future of a world order based on rules, humanity, and predictability is being decided.
For the Russian president, the West should be blamed for this war. Here's how Putin's invasion has unfolded so far. Russia has targeted Ukraine's critical infrastructure. It annexed 4 Ukrainian regions in September last year. Russia also captured the salt mining town of Soledar. But the tipping point is the battle for Bakhmut, a strategic town that could decide the fate of this war. As Russia slowly gains ground, but the country faces significant losses in Donbass, just as it did in the north where Ukraine reclaimed cities, mainly Kherson. But with Russia preparing for a renewed spring offensive, expect a boost to Ukraine's arsenal. With dozens of battle tanks from NATO allies and the United States, and military aid worth billions of dollars, however, the death and destruction remain. Bureau Report, CNN News 18.
All right, CNN's Nick Robertson is joining me live from London. Nick is someone who's covered the war right from day one. The question that is top of mind for everyone is, did you even expect that this would last this long? And what are the most poignant moments, if you will, Nick, over the last 1 year that you've seen while you were covering this war?
I think at the beginning it was expected that Russia would really make and hold gains very quickly. It didn't. So I think within a month we realized that the war wasn't going to go Russia's way. And I think at that point as well it became clear that this was going to be a long, protracted war. Certainly until the summer, there was always a question of would Russia manage to break through somewhere along the very, very long front lines. And I think perhaps one of the most poignant moments for me was being in Kherson after that city had been retaken by Ukrainian forces. They'd been wanting to get in there for a long time. They'd been sort of probing the area that was a base that Russia had been using to shell nearby cities and towns. So it was incredibly important militarily, but also politically to show that they could make gains. So that was very poignant when we were in there the day after, right after it was liberated, to get the feeling from people there, about what it meant to be able to come out of their homes, to be able to live their lives, not to be in fear of Russians. And I think another poignant moment was driving along an area near the front line that had previously been the front line, and that area itself was so heavily damaged, so badly damaged, that every house in each village we went through was either partially demolished, completely demolished. I think there was barely one or two families, quite literally, in a village that was a couple of miles long. So the scale and scope of destruction it is also, I think, quite poignant to take away.
And just earlier this week, we had U.S. President Joe Biden visiting Ukraine. A day or so after that, the Chinese top diplomat Wang Yi was in Russia. Is this war now becoming a proxy war between the U.S. and its allies, supporting Ukraine on the one side and China and Russia on the other?
Yeah, and China has used that language itself. It's saying that Ukraine and the United States are in a reinvigorated Cold War scenario, if you will. China's role can be hugely influential. They could pressure Russia to understand what they say, what China says on one hand, that sovereignty should be respected. The perception in Ukraine and in the United States and in Europe and in the other Western powers, we can talk about South Korea, we can talk about Japan and others as well who support Ukraine, is that China's not playing a neutral role here. They appear to be putting themselves forward as a neutral party, but they've signed an agreement of unlimited support and cooperation with Russia. They're providing non-lethal aid and assistance to Russia at the moment. Russia's economy is hurting. China is helping by doing business with Russia, is helping keep the economy in Russia afloat, therefore keeping Putin in this war. There are concerns that China may move towards providing lethal military aid. There's no evidence that they have so far. So China's role in this can be huge.
All right, Nick Robertson, thank you very much for joining us, the Chief International Correspondent for CNN, live from London for us tonight. Let's now open this up to our guests. Ksenia Kondratьева is a senior Russian journalist. Joining us from Moscow, Solomia Bobrovska is a Ukrainian member of parliament, joining us from Kyiv, and Rajiv Dogra, former Indian diplomat, also on the broadcast. Ksenia Kondratьева, let me start with you first. You heard from Nick Robertson a moment ago. When this war started a year ago, the expectation was that it would quickly, wrap up in Russia's favor, that Russia would take Kyiv, the Zelensky regime would be overthrown, and Russia would install someone who is favorable to Moscow. That has not happened. In fact, it's gone on for a year. Russia has been pushed back from a large number of places it had in its control when this war began, or at least in the immediate few weeks after this war began. Russia probably controls about a fifth of Ukrainian territory right now. How do you see this ending? Because it's clear, as long as the West is going to keep this military tap going and this sort of almost non-stop flow of military aid to Ukraine, this war is not going to end in Russia's favor.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. We will see what happens at the battlefield, because, as you said, if Ukraine continues getting supplies, and we see that the kind of weapons is becoming more sophisticated, and the range of missiles is also getting bigger. I think yesterday we've heard from a couple of Ukrainian officials that such targets that were considered remote, for example, Ukrainian city of Mariupol, which is now under Russia's control, they were referring to some explosions heard in the city, and the Ukrainian officials said that now these are not unreachable for us. So, that just suggests probably that they referred to some weapons. There is no official information on that, whether Ukraine has got the longer range missiles or not. But we assume it will get. So yes, definitely it will intensify, and we have to see what happens at the battlefield. We cannot.
Okay, so Lamia Bobrovska, it is also equally clear that Ukraine, if we were to move in the direction of some form of cessation of hostilities and a ceasefire, then Ukraine will have to give up some amount of territory that it controlled prior to 24th February 2022. Mr. Zelensky says he won't concede an inch. You cannot have a peace or a ceasefire if that's going to be the bottom line, if that's going to be the red line for Ukraine and the United States, that you're going to recapture every single inch of territory that Russia has taken since this war began.
The point is, we tried to believe in a ceasefire since 2014, when Russia illegally annexed Crimea and part of Luhansk-Donetsk region. That's what the problem, that we signed the Minsk agreements because of the very long negotiations with France, with Germany, with Russia in Minsk. And that was the biggest problem. That was the biggest preparation before the Great War, as it happened last year in this day. So President Zelensky is absolutely right. If once we trust and believe, we see what happened and what can happen. So that's why we will find as well the solution only on the battlefield. Every inch of our land is very expensive because of the loss we have in our army, with military, with the civilians, with all damages we are facing. So the only one thing, the ceasefire can happen. That means, and that we have to understand, has to be the withdrawing Russian troops from the Luhansk, Donetsk region, Zaporizhia, and Crimea as well. Up till the end, we will still keep fighting.
Can I ask you something? Why would Russia do that? Russia right now controls all of these regions, including Crimea, which it annexed in 2014. Why would Russia do that without getting any kind of security guarantees in return?
That's the question. What does it mean, the security guarantees for Russia? What does it mean? They just came. In trying to invade the other sovereign state. So if you are so clear with your invasion, so be happy and do your business with the Belarus, which you are just you're making a soft invasion. When it's happened the big war in 2014, that means the whole order, the whole international order changed, and that means that you just breaking the rules which you signed after 1945.
Okay. So let me ask that to Rajiv Dogra. I think since the UN Charter came into place, one of the inviolable rules has been that you do not violate the sovereignty and territorial integrity of another country. Now, no matter how this war ends, there can be no justification for that action that was taken by Vladimir Putin. Of course, like I said, he may need some security guarantees. He may have been justified about NATO right at Russia's doorstep and so on. But by choosing to go into kinetic action against Ukraine and by, trying to conquer its territory, by trying to infringe on its sovereignty, he has violated everything that the UN Charter and the international community have stood for since the end of the Second World War.
You're absolutely right.
Rajiv Dogra.
Well, you're absolutely right, Zaka.
Yeah.
Yes, you are absolutely right, Zaka. UN Charter, in theory, says that. But let's look at the practice. What did China do to India in 2 years back in 2020? What has America done in practice? What did it do in Iraq? What did it do in Libya? What did it do in Syria? I can name any number of countries where America has gone and violated UN Charter in letter and spirit. What did President Biden say in January of last year? He said his exact words were, Russia can nibble a bit of Ukraine. Was that not a sanction for Russia to march in and nibble a little bit, which it has done? Before February of last year, Russia was in control of only less than 10% of Ukrainian territory. After Biden encouraged it to nibble a bit or a bit more, it is now in control of twice that amount of Ukrainian territory. So only to believe the Western propaganda about what is happening, I think would be a major mistake. Let me also add, Russia has made great tactical and strategic mistakes during this war.
Yeah.
It miscalculated hugely the military side of it. But that is Russia's problem, Russia's responsibility, and for Russia to face the consequences of those mistakes. But one additional point which I must emphasize, and giving the example of Second World War, where Russians lost 27 million people, including soldiers and civilians, and America lost only about a few 100,000 people at the maximum. Russia has a great capacity for suffering. America starts crying when the first body bags start arriving home. So America at the moment is enjoying itself because it is fighting to the last Ukrainian.
Yeah.
But the moment American mercenaries start getting killed, then there will be another picture that will start hearing about.
Okay, so let me go back to Ksenia
Russia
Kondratiyeva as well as Solomia Bobrovska, and then I'll wrap up this particular segment. So Ksenia Kondratiyeva, it seems like, and this is what the US is saying, this is what Ukraine is also saying, that this entire thing will stop tomorrow if Vladimir Putin decides. The impression that the rest of the world seems to have is that Vladimir Putin has gone crazy. This entire war was his idea. His generals, not all of them were entirely on the same page, but obviously you can't say anything against Vladimir Putin if you want to be in Russia. And this is basically an entire war for the last 1 year because of the paranoia of one man.
I would suggest that that's a convenient point or convenient way to present the background and the whole tragedy of this war. Convenient for the Western media, Western propaganda. I would use that word because we not only have propaganda in Russia, which we do, but we have Western propaganda as well, and that's a fight between two propagandas. So it's a very narrow-minded point of view.
But Ksenia, let me rephrase my question. Ksenia, let me rephrase my question. If instead of Vladimir Putin, there was another Russian leader, do you think he or she would have done the same thing?
History doesn't know ifs. I don't really believe that. So I don't believe in the idea that somebody is, craziness about imperialism or hatred towards Ukraine. I mean, we read all this nonsense in the Western media, right? That has led to this war. I think you have to look at this conflict first of all as a geopolitical, conflict, and Mr. Dogra said it right.
Okay.
It's what is happening, and you yourself said it's a proxy war, and let's look at this conflict as the proxy war, first of all.
Okay, so Solomia
there
Bobrovska,
are other aspects to the conflict.
on that note, essentially what has happened is Rajiv Dogra said, America may be fighting this war, providing you military aid and weapons and tanks and so on, but it's your people who are dying. America will fight till the last Ukrainian, not till the last American. Therefore, have you become sort of this punching bag in this proxy war between two big powers, US on the one side and Russia on the other?
You have to understand one very clear thing. If someone is coming to your land to invade, if someone is raping your wife, sister, girlfriend, daughter, if someone is just killing your mom or grandma, grandpa, if someone making the horrible war crimes you've seen in Bucha or Irpin, or in Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, whatever, the Donetsk region, that means you don't care about who will be staying to the end in this war. The only thing The only thing will matter till what day you can stand for your land.
Okay.
Yes, for us it's crucial and it's very important. Who will be staying with us? With what they will be staying with us? With which kind of support, military support we will have? But believe me, the very first hours, I would say, or the very first day, show to the whole world and to the Western states as well, and I think, and for the Russians as well, that we will be fighting till the end, no matter how many and who will be staying with us on our side.
All right, we'll leave it at that. I will say this much, that I think Salomia is right in as much as I don't think even the West expected Ukraine to put up this kind of a resistance to Russian onslaught, or the corollary is also just as true, that Russia being the much bigger military power, even perhaps the West would have expected Russia to run amok and finish this war in a matter of weeks, if not months. None of that has come to be true. Instead, here we are, 1 year into this war with no end in sight. And finally, the last story tonight, a day after Warisde Punjab chief Amritpal Singh and his followers stormed a police station in Ajnala on the outskirts of Amritsar and demanded the release of one of his aides. The cops today surrendered and got the judicial remand of this aide removed. He's now out as a free man.
मैं हुणे वार्निंग दिना अद्धे घंटे ਜਾਂ ਘੰਟੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰਚਾ ਨਾ ਕੈਂਸਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਸਨ ਹੈ
Self-styled Sikh preacher and Waris Punjab Day chief Amritpal Singh has his way.